Hi there, my name is Koby Kushner. I'm a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities, and welcome to another episode of Red Cloud TV. We're here with Mass Gold CEO and Director Jim Engdahl.
Hi, Koby.
And he's going to be talking to us about the company's exploration projects in Saskatchewan. So they're currently working on 4 properties. They're all proximal to one another, and they're developing a hub and spoke type model. So we'll get on with some questions here. So the southernmost hole in the North Lake deposit this year, that was hole NL22101, it encountered some pretty high grades. Are there plans to follow up and further expand in this direction?
Yeah, that was an excellent hole, and it's one of the first ones we had of that caliber, and it does lead to some new opportunities for us. We are, however, not going to take our eye off the ball of getting the hub and spoke model developed a little bit more so. It will be a priority, but it won't be our number one priority, and doing a little bit more knowledge drilling there, at least in the near term. Once we get our fall program finished and a few more things done, then we'll decide when we will. But we definitely will be going back to find out what that's all about, because it's very exciting. 8 grams over 3 meters is a pretty nice hole.
So do you plan to conduct an additional drill program this year?
Potentially this year, maybe as much as 1,800 meters on Contact Lake, depending on what our geologist is that's doing the update on the resource. I think we will, because there's the 2 targets that Darren has identified at this point are at the end of the decline, and that would add a resource. But also at the end of the decline, it's still open at depth. The deposit that Cameco was mining is still open. Mm-hmm. So ideally at some point we'll want to sink a deep hole there, right, to see how deep it continues to go. But right now the focus, again, once you get underground, it's so much cheaper. If you're down 250 meters, that's $300 times 250 savings to drill that same hole when you're underground. So, right. And so that's what you got to look at from the economics, and that's why we'll do the minimal amount of drilling to get a resource that we believe we need to have at Contact to bring it back into play, and then we can do our calculation. And then we'll start doing some more of the infill drilling to upgrade resources and that sort of thing to give us the targets where we're going.
My understanding is that was pretty, high grade, whereas you're normally after, at least at the North Lake deposit, you're looking at more of a bulk tonnage, low grade type of deposit. So does this really change things, or?
Well, right now we have about 500,000 ounces on North Lake in terms grading 0.85. So if in fact that can get protracted and brought into the overall resource, it can move our numbers up dramatically from just averaging the overall grade. If we can get a few more holes like that, then you can move the grade up to 1.25 grams per ton. That's like a 40% increase in your resource. So that's what we're going to have to find out at some point, not too distant future. But right now we'll work with this until we find out what the higher grade zones are that we have in the other properties in the area. That's when we may go back and see if there's an opportunity to bring our overhead mill head grade up, because our target is to get to 2 grams plus, that is mill head grade, using what we have. What we thought was 0.85, maybe it's higher, with Contact, Comstock, previous Southwest, and our point deposits. So if in fact that does happen, and we don't quite get to our objective, we might do some more drilling to see if we can move it up that way.
Okay. So the drill program this year is, primarily focused on the North Lake deposit. So what do those results from Point and Preview Southwest tell you about the expansion potential of these deposits?
The North Lake drilling was more upgrading inferred, indicated, and a few things like that, other than the hole 101. The point, we have an internal resource on the point deposit, but the point deposit is very close to the hub, which is the North Lake. And if we can get some high grade there, which we believe we can, 100 plus ounces, that becomes a nice little spoke for it. Contact Lake, we believe, will be the number one spoke. And that's where we want to prove up what was there historically. When Cameco mined it, when they started, they announced 8 grams of material. And there's some discussion of how much they announced, but it was reported in the Northern Miner at 500,000 ounces. They mined 188,000 ounces and shut it down. So when they shut it down, they said we closed it off because the grade wasn't there, and it was actually only 6 grams. We know that that's, they wanted a reason to shut it down because they had the big fish to fry in Kyrgyzstan with Kumtar. And that's in fact what they did do. And I'm not saying that was a bad decision on their behalf. Business-wise, it was probably a very good decision. It was a bad decision locally for how it affected the people locally at the time. But now the excitement is getting back, that the potential of that coming back on stream is will reactivate the area.
Sure. And I mean, 6 grams per ton in today's day and age is
exactly
not bad.
Exactly my point was, 6 grams back then at $300 an ounce doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. So their cutoff grade, I think, was 4 grams, if I'm not mistaken. So that can be lowered, and the tonnage that, if we can use a lower cutoff grade, we can find probably a lot of ounces just in redoing numbers and pricing.
Right.
Once we can get confirmation of the existing drill holes that were there.
Right. Okay, and you guys completed some channel sampling this year and identified the felsite unit well to the north of the North Lake deposit. So are there plans to follow up on that this year?
We're doing a little bit of that, but the focus isn't going to be to do a lot of field work. It is to kind of complement with what our drilling had been, and will help in our decision making as we go further down the road to picking our drill targets for each one of those properties where we did that field work. But for the most part, we're going to be trying to define the best drill targets, and Contact Lake is our next place where we'll be drilling, and that'll happen this year.
And when exactly do you guys plan to release an updated resource?
They're working on it as we speak, so there is an outside chance we could have it by the end of September, but certainly within the fourth quarter.
Okay, and what about a PEA?
Once we've got that and our new drill results from Contact Lake, we might have one more drill program in the winter of 2023, which would be focused on the previous Southwest and Comstock properties. And once that is done, we would probably do it towards the middle to the latter part of 2023.
Okay. And will this PEA encompass the whole hub and spoke model? Is that the goal?
Yes, it will, and that will be the goal, to focus on exactly that, which will potentially include the Greywacke property, which we have, which is a little bit further away, but it's got a lot more gold there. It's got 155,000 ounces, and it's got a high-grade zone of 8 grams per ton, with about 90,000 ounces in that high-grade zone. So it could be a spoke of the hub and spoke. There is another possibility that if there's another mill that's closer than our planned mill would be, and if that mill happens to become available for use one way or the other, whether we own it or somebody else owns it, it's possible that we could run that through that mill. So
Okay.
The economics will determine that, and right now the metallurgy on most of the deposits up there, but in particular Greywacke, the recovery rate is 80% plus minus without any cyanide process. So it's very environmentally friendly and a lot cheaper to put into production to do it that way. And then eventually you use those tailings and use a different process to get the other gold out. But for the most part, you could get a high grade zone out of there 80,000 ounces. That's a fair bit of capital to help develop the bigger picture.
Gotcha. And you know, we keep talking about the hub and spoke, but let's take a step back here. And what is a hub and spoke model, and where would you locate right now? Where would you plan on locating the proposed mill?
The hub and spoke model is a central mill, with different properties within economic distance to that mill, depending on what the grades may be. That presently is planned at North Lake. And the reason for that is that North Lake is open pit potential, and that's where your biggest tonnage is going to be used to be processed. It's also outside of the park, provincial park, where the other deposits that we talked that will be the spoke are inside the provincial park. And it's more difficult to permit a mill within the park than it is, but it's okay. It's to mine is not a problem. And so there are many reasons that come into play on that, but the economics make the most sense, and that's the hub being at North Lake and contact being probably spoke 1, previous Southwest, spoke 2, point spoke 3, and Greywacky could be anywhere in amongst them all. And there's a lot of other showings there as well that we'll focus on after we've got the primary PEA done, that we can see that might complement or add to it. A lot of gold showings in that area.
And let's talk infrastructure now. You know, how close are you to some major hubs, and what kind of infrastructure is there near your properties?
Larange, the town of Larange, is there's about 5,000 people, I believe, in Larange, is 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers to where the hub would be.
Okay.
The power line goes right over our core shack on North Lake. So does it have enough power to build the mill? Well, not sure, because we don't know the exact size and what our inputs would be required there. But it's got a line that could be upgraded for sure. On the northern, from the northern side, there's another mill called the Jolu Mill that is fully permitted. It's got a power line coming in from the north side and east side, and that also provides power to some of the other mines in the area, the uranium mines, et cetera. So we've got great infrastructure. We got a great power potential. We got a highway that goes right by. Our core shack is 100 feet from the highway. All our properties are within 15 kilometers of the highway for the most part. So, and the resources, the human resources, which will be significant. There's a lot of demand these days in Saskatchewan, but working with the Larange Band as close as we do, hopefully we'll be able to provide, and that won't become any kind of an issue as well either.
Okay, great. So, you know, longer term, is your strategy to actually go ahead and mine these deposits, or are you planning on more just developing them and de-risking them and selling them off to someone else?
I think our plan either way will be the same, because you got to do that. You got to take it to that level where you can show it's economical, and at that point, then it's a matter of, do you want to put the team together and the resources to do that and mine it yourself? Or do you bring in a partner? It's much easier to bring in a partner, but it may not be as profitable. So I suspect that we will look towards bringing in a partner or partnering with somebody. But again, it's all about getting the best value for your shareholders. So, and those things will all come into play in a significant way to determine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a little premature for me to be asking that question. But,
well, it is, but I think we will get recognized more and more by each time we add ounces to our balance sheet. And when we hit 2 million, when we hit 1 million, that opened a few eyes, and we had a few tire kickers. When we hit 1.5 million this year, that'll open a few more. And if we can get lucky in 2023, get to 2 million, which I think we can. But we're going to focus more on the economics of the unit in 2023. So all those things will certainly, and a game changer would be like the acquisition of another mill that's permitted not too far away.
Right, right.
And that's a possibility.
So do you have plans in place to increase your marketing and raise your profile?
Yeah, we're our recent hire of Lori Thomas, our investor relations manager and corporate development. She brings a tremendous amount of experience in that area. Worked with Cameco for 12 years, I believe, as their investor relations manager. And and that again was part of the focus I had in 21, bringing our team together in Saskatoon all together and working. And now that that's all happened, we are actually starting that as we speak. And we will also have an updated and new website, thanks to Lori and the team that's been working on it. So very shortly.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we've worked with Lori before, and I can attest to her pedigree.
For sure.
So you guys have Ron Netalinsky on your board. He's chairman. He founded the company. So tell us about his involvement in your day-to-day operation.
Well, Ron has always been a hands-on guy ever since I've known him, and particularly on the exploration side. And he lends a terrific amount of support to Darren and the team. The team being the Axiom group, where Darren has been seconded from 100% of the time. But Ron is, and also on any financings we've done, Ron has been one of the major participants, which is a lot of his followings are the same. Many people follow him over the years. I think he's been involved in 23 successful junior companies outside of the discoveries that he's made in Eskay Creek and the like. So it's just one of those icons, and one of the reasons why I took the role on as CEO in January 21. Thought one more rodeo with a guy like Ron, not a bad legacy.
Yeah, I mean, he's a legend in the space, right?
Yeah,
Canadian
absolutely.
Mining Hall of Famer, and
Yeah.
so many awards under his belt. So.
Yeah.
You mentioned a company called Axiom. Who are they? And
Axiom is an young exploration company that got formed primarily about 4 years ago. And a lot of young, bright minds with a lot of ambition and to be working with all of the most recent technology. And they've grown the company from 20 people when they started to over 100 to date. And they've expanded into other industries as well as a result of their application and how they do things and integrate. But as a result of their integration and what they do, we have all those resources available at any time under the contract that we have with them. And I can say that it's much more reasonable than owning your own exploration department. Darren just provides tremendous amount of support and time, and he has one more geologist that pretty well is 100% of the time with us as well. And so whatever else we need, though, they just pull from the team. And the other part of that, we have when we talk about our management team and our staff, another company that that consults to us is a company called CanNorth, which is an environmental consulting company. They're owned by Kitsaki Developments, which is the industrial arm of the L'Orange Band, which is the indigenous group that we work with in our area. And they're very knowledgeable. They've been around for 20 plus years, do a terrific job, and to be working with the First Nations in our area, it just adds so much to it. So some of the key things, the teams that we have, and that the CanNorth team is, and the indigenous part of what we do is an exceptionally large part and a very important part.
All right, well, Jim, thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate it, and we liked learning about your story.
Well, thank you.